Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to modify Quake. Quake World, technically, it is the internet version of Quake 1. So when Quake 1 actually released, it didn't have support for like the internet. That's how old the game is. It came out in 96, I think. And so they actually added in internet support a couple months later. It's called Quake World, but it's basically Quake 1. And one of the most famous mods of Quake 1 is a game called Team Fortress, which you might have heard of from Team Fortress 2. A lot of people don't know that before Team Fortress 2, there was something called Team Fortress Classic. Team Fortress Classic was a remake of Team Fortress 1, which was a Quake mod. So I'm going to show you how to modify Team Fortress 1. So if you check the canvas, you'll see there is a link here. If you download this link, it will give you a nice setup where you've got a modern client, a modern server, all the source code, it's good to go. And you click on that, you download it, you unzip it into a folder, and you get this. Okay, and you like Team Fortress 2? Good. Yeah, Team Fortress 2 is very similar in spirit to Team Fortress 1. A little bit different though, and some substantial differences. So what do you got here? So after you open it, actually I think the folders are a little bit different than the one that I've given you. There is a source directory somewhere. I think you might actually have a directory here called source. It doesn't matter. It's either here in something called source or it's in the Fortress directory called source. It doesn't really matter. The point is that there's all these files inside of here, and these files are the source code for the Team Fortress mod. Originally, id Software released the source code for Quake, and then the Team Fortress people, which were a bunch of college students, much like yourselves, doing modding for the first time, they took the source code for Quake and they added classes to it. So if you don't know what Team Fortress is, it's a class-based team first-person shooter. So you got two teams. Typically, you capture the flag, you go into the enemy base, grab their flag, bring it back, and there's a bunch of different classes on each team. And so you can play as a medic to heal people or a scout to run fast and things like that. And the goal is to put together a good team composition on your team and have fun and win and stuff like that. So the original Team Fortress was a 32-player game. That is 16 versus 16 teams. Usually it did support 4 teams, actually, so you could have 4 teams of 8, which is kind of fun. Like, to be perfectly honest, like, there are things that were done in older games that are, like, mind-blowing to people today. Like, Overwatch was originally, 6 versus 6? Team Fortress was 16 versus 16. And now Overwatch 2, I think, is 5 versus 5. Like, they're cutting the player counts down. I don't know. Maybe they just don't have good enough... like, networking code. I don't know. I don't tell you. So, the thing is, like, 32 players actually runs buttery smooth on Quake World. It's only these modern games that really struggle to have high player counts like that. So, okay, so the source code here has a bunch of different files, and I'm going to show you how to edit a file, compile it, and then run it. So these are the 3 steps we're going to do today. So these files are just in text files, and you can actually open them like in Notepad if you want, or Vim or something like that. I don't really recommend it, but you can. It's just a text file, and you can look at the thing, and you can see it's actually kind of big. Like, this is not a small file. This contains most of the weapon code for the game. And Control G, so we're on line 6300 right now. It's not a small file. Now, if you want something that looks a little bit nicer, there is a text editor called VS Code and Visual Studio Code, which I don't like calling Visual Studio because Visual Studio is an IDE, which is a completely different product than VS Code. They're not the same at all. VS Code is a text editor, and Visual Studio is an IDE, an integrated development environment. Not the same thing at all. But it sounds like it's just a version of Visual Studio. Like, there's Visual Studio Community, and there's Visual Studio Code. No, they're completely different. I don't like the name, so I'm just going to call it VS Code. So if you go to VS Code and download it, then once you install it, you can right-click on the folder. This is actually kind of fun. Right-click on the folder and choose Open with Code. And then you will see that all of the files in the directory appear on the left-hand side here. So you can kind of have your whole directory view over here. And if you click on a file, it'll open up that file over here, and you can click here and close it. So if you wanted to look at weapons.qc, you can see over here, you've got a little thumbnail view of the whole thing. And if you want to have this colorization turned on, then extensions. You click on this thing here in VS Code, and you can install extensions for it. There is a Quake C extension that makes it look nice, colors the keywords and things like that the way they're supposed to be colored. And so it's by Victor Feitosa, and you can just search for extensions by searching for Quake C, and then you click install, and then every time you open a .qc file, it will have code highlighting turned on like this. Okay, so it looks a lot nicer. You can also change the color scheme in it. I obviously have a night mode, a dark mode turned on, so it doesn't burn my eyes. Other extensions that are useful, you can do remote development. If you want to partner with somebody on your mod in this class, you can do so. You can also partner with somebody on your main project as well. And so there are extensions in Visual Studio Code, VS Code, that... Did my video feed die? I guess it did. There are extensions in VS Code that allow you to actually collaboratively edit a text file with somebody. So if you look down here at Live Share, I can actually share my document that I'm working on with my partner. We can both edit the file at the same time. So if you wish to have a partner for this class, just post onto the chat channel, ask for a partner, and if nobody responds to you, then they just don't like you. I kid. That was way too harsh. No, like a lot of people like working alone on these things, because having a partner just multiplies the amount of like headaches you get with like trying to coordinate a time to work together and stuff like that. So I don't know if I would recommend having a partner. If there's two of you that are kind of like-minded and you both want to make dragons that can shoot rocket launchers, I don't know, then maybe, yeah, you should work together. It's up to you though. But yeah, VS Code has a live share function. It's pretty cool, and it just makes working together really easy. It's like Google Docs. You can see them editing the same thing you are. I do have Vim mode installed here. That's not enabled. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, there is Vim mode for Visual Studio Code, VS Code, which allows you to use all of your lovely Vim commands inside of VS Code, so you don't lose that. So yeah, I guess it does look a little complicated, but I'm going to explain kind of what's going on here. Is it group work? It's not exactly group work. It's an individual assignment that you can work in a group if you want. Let's put it that way. Okay, so that was way harsh. So yeah, what you're going to do, you get VS Code, you get those extensions installed. Then from the top, right-click on the source code directory, wherever that is. It might be in a different directory for yours, I think. Open with code. And then VS Code will load with the directory of all the text files on the left-hand side here, and then your source code on the right-hand side. Over here, it looks like you just updated. Okay, so if you want to open a different file, you click on one of the things here. If you want to search across all of the files, this is probably the most important thing for modding. So let's say that we've been playing some custom Team Fortress together, which we will, so make sure you get all this stuff installed. Let's say that you just don't like the dataless weapon. Like, you just think that the dataless weapon just does too little damage. And you don't know where this thing is within the... where is the code that does damage, for the dataless weapon, right? Where is the code that handles how much health a civilian has? I'm just looking at it right here. How much health does an engineer have? Okay. When you mod things, your first step is to find where the number is. Okay. So when you're going to be modifying Quake, if you want to do something like change how much health the engineer has in Team Fortress, your first goal is to find this line right here. And by default, it doesn't just naturally appear on the screen like it did for me. By default, you're looking at this. You're looking at nothing. You've got all these files over here, and somewhere within this code, there is a line that says the rocket launcher does 90 damage. Somewhere. Okay? And so there's a couple approaches you can take, like if you're trying to find where the health of the engineer is, you can look around and be like, oh, well, there's an engineer file. I'll open that one up and just kind of scroll through it looking for stuff. I'm going to tell you, there's hundreds of thousands of lines of code in this. You are probably not going to just come across where the health is for the engineer. You need a better approach. So the better approach is to use this search function here. And that's going to search across all of the files in your directory. And so if I wanted to do something like find where the number is, like the 90 or whatever it is that the rocket launcher does, I could just search for maybe rocket launcher, something like that. And then this shows you every place within the source code, every place within the folder where the word rocket launcher appears. Do you guys see how useful this is? This is like your bread and butter for modding. Your bread and butter for modding is finding where stuff is. That's the hardest activity. Where, if you've played Overwatch, where in the code do, what is McCree's name now? Because they changed the name of McCree, right? I'm talking about. Did they change his name? Maybe not. Okay. So when McCree uses his ultimate, he says it's Morbin time, right? No, he says it's high noon. So, actually, did they change his name? Oh, yeah. It's Cole Cassidy now. Okay, cool. All right. So when he hits ult, then it lasts for 6.2 seconds. So somewhere within the code for Overwatch, the number 6.2 exists somewhere. Now, if you know it's exactly this number, you can actually just search for 6.2. That, that's an approach you could take. If you know that it does exactly 550 damage, you can just try searching for that and see if you get lucky. But in general, you're going to search for something like ult or it's high noon or something like that. You need to find that number somewhere in the code. Do you guys understand? So when you're modding, and you know what you want to change. I want to change how long, the ult lasts for. You have to find it. Okay. So if I want to change the damage of the rocket launcher, I can search for rocket launcher, and then I can just kind of scroll around. And you can see there's actually not that many places in the code where the word rocket launcher appears. And so I can just click on them. And when I click on them, it takes me to that spot in the code. So it looks like this is the purchasing menu where you buy stuff. That buy weapon doesn't have anything to do with anything. Looks like menus of options, some help string stuff. Gremlin stole your rocket launcher. Okay. And this might tell you stuff okay, well, so this is code that somebody stole my rocket launcher. Okay, so how does that work? And you can look at the code here and be okay, but that's not really what we're looking for. But that might give you some ideas of how it keeps track of the ammo of rockets and things like that. Grunty fires his rocket launcher. That sounds mwahaha. That's funny. I didn't write that. So this is AI code that doesn't look right. Sentry gun rocket launcher is now hacked for a sentry gun. Nope, that's not us either. Self.net name rocket launcher. Rocket launcher is all menu stuff. Weapons.qc. Okay. Rocket launcher selected. Oh, and here is a comment that says rocket launcher. So if I click on that, let's see what we got here. All right. So this is T Daedalus Touch. So this is a different weapon. Okay. Maybe I come to this one. And I can see here, so somewhere in here, it's got something that says, if my current weapon is the rocket launcher. Okay, so this might give me something to go on. So it's like a Sherlock Holmes investigation. So I searched for rocket launcher, and I discovered in the code here that that's how you have in the code if you have the rocket launcher out. So if your current weapon is hashtag #wep_rocket_launcher, that means I've got the rocket launcher out. Okay, cool. So maybe I can just search for this. You can try the whole thing, actually. Control-Shift-F. If you hit Control-Shift-F, it fills it in for you. And you can see there's only a few places in the code where it says if your current weapon is the rocket launcher. So we can come up here, and this looks like reloading code or something. Not enough ammo to reload, so that's probably not exactly right. So yeah, this is code to like reload the rocket launcher. That's not what we're looking for. Grunty, again, is AI stuff. And as you mod, you become familiar with the code base. So you know that probably nothing you're interested in is going to be in Grunty, because Grunty, when you click on it, it's a bot. So it's a bot that plays Quake, essentially. And so we don't care about any of that unless we're doing AI stuff, right? So here inside of weapons.qc, this looks pretty promising. What's sprint? It is a print function. It prints to the screen. You never watched Morbius? Yeah, nobody else did either. It's high nooning time. So, okay, so here we got some stuff. So we can just go through like the 6 hits that we got in weapons.qc, because weapons.qc sounds pretty good to me. That's a promising file name, right? And so this one here says if the current weapon is grenade launcher, then the weapon model is set to be rock. If the weapon is this, set the weapon model to be rock. If you are using the sniper rifle, set your weapon. So what this is doing is changing the weapon that draws on the screen in front of you. So that's not exactly what we're looking for. Okay, go to the next one. If current weapon is equal to rocket launcher, if self-reload rocket launcher is greater than that, self-reload is that, self-ammo rockets. So this is, again, reloading code, it looks like. So it looks like it's going to spawn a timer, whatever that means. Kind of like, you know, in Unreal Engine, how we did like that callback thing last time, where we created a timer and we said in 5 seconds, you know, do this. Turn the power up off. So the weapon model to blank, so it hides the weapon while you're reloading. So that's also reloading code. Come down here. It's also reloading code. Come down here. Aha. This looks good. So if the current weapon is rocket launcher, let's scroll up a little bit and see what function. Aha, we're in the attack function. Okay, so we're in the right place now. So when you click, that's going to call the attack function. And so it's going to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. If our current weapon is the rocket launcher, if we're reloading, you can't fire while you're reloading. It calls this function. It calls this function. It then adds 1 to your reload count. So once your reload count hits your clip size, it forces a reload on you. Check for reload. If you have a laser sight, there's some other stuff. But so basically, I think our rocket creation is going to be in one of these 2 functions here. Okay. Doesn't Quake use bit fields for weapon inventory? It does. Yeah, but the current weapon isn't a bit field. The current weapon is one value, which weapon you have out. Okay. So so let's take a look at this one. Player rocket 1. Control-Shift-F. Watch what happens up here when I hit Control-Shift-F. Bloop, comes up there. And you can see that a couple different places are calling the function, but only one place is the function. And in Quake C is very similar to C++, if you've ever coded in C++. It's not C++, but it's pretty similar. And most of the stuff you can pick up from it without actually needing to be taught Quake C. So you can see here that this is actually the function itself. And so this is I'll just explain it to you because you probably won't know otherwise. This is how they do animation. So there's a series of frames of animation. and it will play 1 frame of animation, and it keeps track of which frame of animation it's on. And once it hits weapon frame 6, then it goes back into the run animation. So when you click fire the rocket launcher, it'll play 6 frames of animation with the guy recoiling like this, and then it goes back into running normally. And it plays a muzzle flash on the first frame. So it has a burst of light come out of the player. So this is, again, not exactly what we're looking for. Player Rocket 1 plays this frame of animation and then calls Player Rocket 2 on the next frame. Player Rocket 2 sets the frame of animation to Rocket Attack frame 2 and calls Player Rocket 3. So every frame that goes by, it switches. This is not a skeletal mesh. Quake did not have a skeletal mesh system. It does now. By the way, people have modded skeletal meshes into Quake. But this system here is not a skeletal mesh system. It is a static mesh system. So when you attack, it switches out the mesh that is being drawn across 6 frames. And then it switches back into the run animation for normal. So, good news is we now know that is probably the place we're looking for. So Control-Shift-F. And the one, these are all people calling it, this is the one that is it. And that's why that equal sign is actually really nice. I like it. There's the definition of it. And so here is the code that actually fires the rocket launcher in Quake. Okay. So, and there goes my video camera again. I don't know what's going on with it. So here's the code that actually fires a rocket. So do you see how this process works? Like you sit there, you search for something. If you can't find it, like you play the game and you wait for somebody to say, it's Morbin time or whatever, you know, and then you control F in here and be like, you know, it's high noon, you know, whatever. And you try to hunt down where the things are in the code base, because there's hundreds of thousands of lines of code. And this is actually a fantastic skill that every programmer needs to have. Even if you guys are not into like games per se, or if you don't want to become a game developer, this skill of being able to find and navigate through a large code base that you're not familiar with is really good. Because when you go to work for a company as just like a boring software engineer, like a boring bank or something like that, not a cool job like at Electronic Arts, then they will turn you loose on a code base that you have no idea of like where anything is. You know, they're like, hey, there's a bug in our there's a bug in our system where like we're giving people negative interest. Find it. You're like, okay, where's the code base? They're like, here's this folder. It's got 500 files in it. The bug's in there somewhere. Have fun. It's a treasure hunt that's not fun, and the payoff is you get to keep your job. So, so this is a good skill because you actually do spend a lot of your time as a real programmer just hunting around, like trying to find the relevant section. So now we found it. Okay. So let me go through this line here and just kind of explain what is happening inside of this function. So we've got a variable called shots. It is of type float. Quake C only has a couple variable types, and float is one of them. It's both an integer and a float at the same time. It's kind of weird. And it's a local variable, which means it's anytime you have a variable that appears only within a function, you should name it a local like that. So any variables that just appear in a function are named local variables. Otherwise, they're globals. So we initialize it to 1. You can actually do that all on the same line. I don't know why. We would split it onto 2 lines. And so here we have some bitwise operations. I don't know. Has anyone here seen bitwise before? Anyone know what bitwise is? It's a good skill for web development also, because you spend a lot of time using the inspect function, figuring out why your freaking div is the wrong color. Yeah, yeah. So, Bitwise is a company here in Fresno. Maybe more of a real estate company than a tech company, but they call themselves a tech company, and they're sort of like a tech incubator and networking and things like that. So, so what their notion is that they have office space. So let's say that you live the dream and you become a independent contractor, game developer or programmer, it doesn't matter. But you like want to have an office, so you want to have like something like official, like away from your kids, They can't come busting in on you and like distracting you. And so you can rent an office at Bitwise with like very high speed internet for like, I don't know, like $100 a month or something like that. So you can have like an official mailing address and an official cubicle to work in and things like that, where you can be free from distractions from your spouse and kids and things like that. And you can go in there and bring your laptop and work. So that's Bitwise. They have meetups every, I think, Friday or every first Friday or something like that, where like you can have a social mixer and meet people in the tech industry in Fresno. You meet fellow programmers that you want to like maybe work with or partner with or something like that. You can also meet potential employers that are going to be looking to hire you and get a job. You can, just go there for the free pizza. Yeah, it's entirely up to you. So the Bitwise we're talking about here, though, has nothing to do with Fresno's Bitwise. The Fresno people are just named after the Bitwise operations here. So this item here, TF items, this is a flute, but it's also an int. It's kind of their own weird kind of thing going on there. Basically, there's 24 bits of precision. And what they're doing here is they're using each bit, each one of those 24 bits represents a different item. And you either have it or you don't have it. So what this is saying is if the person has cluster rockets are something I added to the game that makes it like the Macross Missile Massacre, where like an anime where you've got clouds of rockets that kind of swarm and stuff like that. I added that to the game. And so this is saying like if they have that purchased, then it's going to shoot 6 rockets. It's going to shoot a cloud of rockets instead of just one. Okay. Heavily real estate based, but as of good motivation, you can take classes for web dev and get paid internships. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. If you don't have enough rockets left, then the number of shots you take is equal to how many rockets you have left in your inventory. Your current ammo gets dropped by however many shots you're firing. If you have run out of rockets at this point, then your ammo is set to 0. And if you can't shoot anything because you're out of ammo, then it just returns without doing anything. So here is the actual firing of, this is all just kind of like boring ammo tracking stuff. Here's the actual code. So this plays a sound. So if you want to, now you know how to play a sound in Quake C. There's a function called sound. And the first thing there is where the sound's going to be coming out of. It's going to be coming out of me. What channel? There's different audio channels. It's going to play on the weapon channel. It's going to play that wave file, whatever that is. I think the last one is like volume and then normal attenuation. So like if somebody's on the backside of a wall, the thing gets attenuated downwards. If the person firing the rocket is a player, then it does kick player, which kind of does a little bit of kickback. Like when you fire guns in video games, like the thing recoils like that. So a little bit of recoil, and then it calls make rocket. So that is where we're actually going to make a rocket. So Sherlock Holmes time again, right? Control Shift F. Let's find make rocket. And so you can see it's being called in a bunch of different places, but right here is where it actually is. And so you just sit there and you just follow the rabbit. You just follow the white rabbit down through the rabbit hole. You just chase it, trying to find, okay, all I'm trying to do is find how much damage the thing does. But you're just like kind of tracing the flow of this thing, finding out, okay, when I click, it calls this function handles your ammo, then it calls this function here. Okay. So here we have make rocket, and there's lots of stuff going on here. Not a small function, but not too big a function either. That's how you create a new entity in Quake C. Spawn creates a new actor, a new entity in the world, and by default it's completely blank. No model, no anything. It's completely transparent. It's not drawn in the world, etc., etc. So you have to start setting properties on it. So we spawn it. We say I'm its owner. Its move type is what kind of physics it has. So it has a move type fly missile. So it will fly through the world without gravity pulling it down. It's solid, so it can impact things. It's a rocket. I grabbed the forward vector. Remember this from Unreal Engine. Like I said, the same things you do in Unreal Engine, you do in Quake C. And it's not a coincidence. Like Quake, like really set a lot of the groundwork and conventions that are used today, right? So a lot of these things, like, you'll see almost identical in blueprints today in the code here. So we're going to grab the forward direction, and the velocity of our rocket is going to be the direction we're looking. Now remember, this is a normalized vector. So the direction we're looking is a unit vector. It's 1 centimeter, 1 inch, maybe it's an inch. Quake uses a weird unit system. It's like an inch, something like that. So it's going to be traveling 1 inch per second in the direction we're looking, which is not very fast. So what we have to do is multiply it by the speed of the rocket. And there's all sorts of different rockets that we support. Regular rockets are 900. So its velocity is going to be multiplied by 900, essentially. So if you have a unit vector and you multiply a unit vector by 900, it is now pointed in the same direction, but scaled 900 times bigger. So it will move 900 units per second, which, yeah, I don't actually know if it's imperial system. It's a weird system. Let me see if that even makes sense. 900 inches is 75 feet per second. 25 yards per second, I guess. Yeah, that sounds about right, I guess. So it'll cross the football field in 4 seconds. Sounds about right. Yeah, maybe that's correct. Okay. But this is linear algebra right here. So we're taking a vector and multiplying it by a number. Scalar times the vector scales the vector that much. So we start off with a unit vector 1 inch long, and we grow it 900 times bigger, and that's how far it's going to move per second. And there's various things that slow it down. So if it's like tracking a laser sight, then it flies half as fast as normal. See you, Bencorp. And then there's some code here to make the rocket point in the direction it's going. So vector to angles, you give it a velocity and it gives you a direction. And so you rotate it basically to point in the direction that it's looking. And then based on the type of rocket we're making, we set a different model. So that's actually how you set the model. You can have different models for a projectile, a mini missile, a missile, an explode sprite, things like that. And so that's basically setting the static mesh, like in Unreal Engine. When you click over there and you choose the static mesh for like a door or something like that, that's how you do that here. So new miss is getting its model set to be the missile model. How long does it last until it goes away? So by default, it lasts 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on if it's a cluster rocket or not. And the reason for that is because, like, if you fire a rocket launcher and the rocket flies for 5 seconds, that's 500 yards away. Like, that's pretty far. You know what I mean? Like, that's more than a quarter mile. And if the thing hasn't hit anything in like a quarter mile, it's probably not going to hit anything. And so this is a really important system. These two lines right here. Every object in the world in Quake has a think and a next think. Next think is just a number, and it's the time at which the think function will be called. So we're creating a rocket, and we're saying in 5 seconds, because time is a variable holding the current time, in 5 seconds, call the function subremove. And what subremove does is it's like destroy actor, delete actor in Unreal Engine. So if the rocket has not touched anything in 5 seconds, it just removes itself from existence. And the reason why we do that is because you don't want to have infinite lifespan rockets just sort of flying around the world infinitely with all of the physics having to take up, server calculations and things like that. There's also a limited number of actors that you can create in the world, which is like a couple hundred. Normally that's good enough, but if you allow people to just sit there and click and create rockets, and they'll eventually run out of open entity slots and the thing will crash. So we ensure that the rockets clean themselves up after 5 seconds. Does that make sense to you guys? You can do this on Unreal Engine too. You can set the lifespan of an object so that you create something and then it just deletes itself after 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Are you guys with me on this? So if you want something to happen in the future, like if you make a grenade, then what you do is you set the grenade's next thing to be like time plus 3. So in 3 seconds, and then you make a function, not remove, obviously. You make a function called like grenade explode or something like that. And then in 3 seconds, it will call grenade explode. And so that's how you can have actions take place in the future simply and easily. It is a lot of info, I understand, but we're getting to the good point. So there's touch and think. Remember, those are the ways we interact with the world. It's established in Quake. Still thinking about this the same way today. So think means in 5 seconds do something, and touch means when this rocket touches something, what do we do? And that is here. So that is a different function. It's called T-missile touch. So when our rocket impacts something, it calls that function. Okay? So if the rocket doesn't impact anything, after 5 seconds, it just removes itself. But if it does impact something, it calls that function there. And between touch and think and tick, if you need to, you can have basically, anything you want done in a video game. Okay? So touch means when I touch something, and think means after a certain number of seconds. Between those two things, you can basically implement anything you want in a video game. It's a very powerful model of thinking about how to write games. So here is T-missile touch, Control-Shift-F. And somewhere in here, there's an equal sign. There it is. And here is our code for when our rocket impacts something. Okay? So if we hit the sky, it just removes itself. It just vanishes. If you shoot up into the sky, it'll just vanish without exploding. If it hits something with health, then it damages that something. And this is what we were looking for. We were looking for like increasing or decreasing the amount of damage the rocket does. So, that right there. There's the damage. Okay. So it's going to inflict damage rocket somewhere. EFT damage right there. Okay, so damage. And so if we're doing the Macross Missile Massacre does less damage. Okay, and so there. Okay, so that is the damage of a rocket. So we have successfully followed the White Rabbit through 5 levels of indirection and found the spot. Well, almost, because where is that set? Right? We have found the spot where we can actually set the damage of a rocket. And so if I hit Control-Shift-F, then you can see somewhere, and that somewhere is in defs.qc, of course. That is how much damage a rocket does. Okay, so if I wanted to multiply the damage that a rocket does by 10, I could just change 92 to 920. Okay, I have made my first mod for Quake. And in fact, the first mod that you guys should make for Quake is just something as simple as that. You just find somewhere within it, you track down the number. How much life does an engineer start with? How much life does a demon start with? How much damage does a rocket launcher do? Whatever. And you just change it, right? And usually I change it at first to something dramatic like this. Because like if you change the damage from like 92 to 93, like you can't tell, right? Because there's like damage fall off and all this other stuff. Like you can't tell if it actually worked. And I want you to do something that you can unquestionably look at and say, yeah, that worked. Okay? So I'm changing the damage of the rocket from 92 to 920. I'm going to choose Save All. And I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to show you how to build the project now. Okay? So there is a shortcut called Make. If you don't see the shortcut, then somewhere within your source code directory, there is a thing called Make. You double click on that. And if everything worked right, you see something like this. That means everything went fine. If you screwed up, like let me go back into VS Code. If you screwed up and like, I don't know, deleted a semicolon or something like that, save. Then when you run make, whatever that is, then it will say error line 2119 in weapons.qc. We expected a semicolon. We got an if instead. Okay. So then we can come back in here to line 219. And you notice that this is the line after it because it's here that it knows the semicolon's missing. And so you oftentimes have to like look up a line and then you fix it and save and then come back in here and make. And again, when everything looks right, this is what you see. Close it out. Now we're ready to run our game. So I'm going to launch the server by double clicking on that. And the server is now running. The server is just a client. It's just like a little console application. There's all sorts of things you can do from the server console here. Like you change the maps, map to port 5R, something like that. You change the maps. You can say hi to people, things like that. But for your own development purposes, you just launch the server and then just minimize it, honestly. And then you're going to launch the client. And so the client is a modern client. It is not ancient 20-year-old source code. It's actually, this is FTE Quake. It's still under active development today. It's got shaders and bloom and things like that. Now you can't make something that is low triangle count, high triangle count very easily. Let's see if I can bring this thing over. It's on my main monitor. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here we have Team Fortress. This is the original. This is the granddaddy of all two-person capture the flag maps. This is two forts. There is a version of two forts in Team Fortress 2, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have played before. And when you join, you can choose blue team or red team. I'm going to choose blue team, and I will choose. You can barely even see it on there. I will choose soldier because the soldier starts with the throw a grenade at myself. The soldier starts with a rocket launcher. So if everything worked right, then yeah, you see that? If everything worked right, that rocket launcher is going to absolutely nuke me, right? Because I'm now changing it from 920 damage or 92 damage to 920 damage. So from there, I was fine. How about from there? Nope, that blew me up. So you can see there's quite a dramatic blast radius on the thing now because the radius of an explosion is based on the damage of the explosion. So if I am shooting something way over there, you see it just absolutely guns me down. Okay, so there we go. So there is your first mod for Quake. Okay, so your job is just to get something that simple working. Okay, so maybe change the starting life of a soldier from 100 to 200 or something like that. Okay, and go capture the flag. Something simple like that. Oh, I don't have Jello water turned on. Let's see. And so a lot of the like hard-coded values are in a file called def.qc. So I'm playing as a scout now. And with Jello water on, I should bounce off the water. Yeah. You guys remember that from Unreal the other day? Like I said, it actually adds a lot of tactical considerations to it. So instead of like the water being a safe place from snipers, you can just bounce off of it and then use it to navigate around the map. All right. There is one final thing that I want to tell you guys that I probably should have let off with, which is the encoding of the text. Before you hit save, because you will screw up your file. I probably should have mentioned this at the very beginning. you have to set the text encoding to Windows 1252. So right here, there is an option for what text encoding. It will default probably to UTF-8. If you save it in Unicode format, it will screw up the file. It won't cause it to not compile. It won't cause it to not work. What will happen is there's some extended ASCII characters that are there's some extended ASCII characters that are in the text files. Those will get corrupted because it's going to try interpreting those as Unicode, and Quake predates Unicode basically. So basically, right here, changing coding to Windows 1252, and I think you can preferences, settings, encoding. Yeah, so inside of VS Code, you can go to settings, preferences, and change the file encoding to Windows 1252. Do that before you do anything else. Okay, but once you got that done, then you can just scroll around inside of defs.qc, find something you want to change. How long does it take to build a sentry gun, right? How long it takes to build a sentry gun, how much health the different things have. How long it takes to reload a rocket launcher, how much damage the demolitions pack does, all that kind of stuff. Is a lot of that's going to be found in defs.qc. So that's a very easy way of making a mod. Don't make the actually I should probably revert that one. Weapons.qc. Actually, it was in defs, wasn't it? It was called like damage rocket or something like that. Do you guys remember what it was called? The thing that I literally just changed. Damage. Okay. Oh, I set it to 920, so I can just find it that way. Damage rocket. Okay, I should type that thing out. I'm gonna save that and put it back. Otherwise, I'm gonna be very sad when I actually play the game. Does the file have the actual game in it? Yes, it has the complete game, all the modding files, all the tools, the compilers, the server, and the client. So you're going to edit the source code, compile the source code using make.bat, run the server, run the client. Okay? And then have fun with it. And ideally, you only have to change like a single number like that, and then everything, save it, compile it, load the server, load the client. Now, if the server and the client are already up and you're doing like another iteration, then you can just like load a new map. So if you type like map 245R, then when the map reloads, it reloads the mod. So the mod loads when the map loads. And so like if you're sitting there and iterating and like changing things, you don't have to keep quitting the server and reloading the server. You can just change the map and then it'll work. Are we gonna learn how to mod other games later? Nope. This is the only game I really know how to mod. But it's a good experience because Quake is kind of like the granddaddy of all first-person shooters. Doom 2 to a certain extent, but Quake is the first 3D one, and so it's very influential, and it's also what I know. So I teach what I know. All right, so that's it for today, guys. Hope you guys had fun. It's not a hard assignment. The assignment is basically just kind of getting up to speed on modding Quake, and then we will probably maybe play some of your mods on Tuesday. All right, thanks everyone. Peace out.